I'm Shawna Rosner, your host of In-House Counsel Chronicles, a podcast designed to chronicle the career journeys of in-house counsel so we can collectively learn from their unique paths to their in-house position, the challenges they've overcome, the milestones they've celebrated, and how they're shaping the future of law in today's rapidly changing business environment. Today, my guest is Sean Radcliffe. Sean earned his BA from Oklahoma State University and his JD from the University of Tulsa College of Law. Sean started his legal practice in private practice in the corporate space and has been an in-house attorney with both public and private companies since 2001. Sean is currently Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer at R1 RCM, a healthcare technology company. Welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Thank you, Shawna. Great to join you.
I'm excited for our conversation. You built a career spanning private practice, technology companies, public companies, correct? You've been at public?
Yes, definitely.
And now healthcare technology. So looking back, what were the pivotal moments you think that shaped your career?
I think the pivotal moments in my career, like many of my colleagues I've spoken with, go to just being in the right time at the right place, armed with a background and skill sets that were able to come into play, able to serve at that moment. So that was definitely the case in my transition from private practice. Briefly went out and set up a solo practice just in time for the dot-com bubble to burst and wipe out all of my clients simultaneously. Big rookie mistake. But that led me then to join an in-house team for the first time. An old mentor reached out and I had the opportunity and fortunately the background and some skills that were useful. And boy, it led to a world I had really not considered before. So I was able to go in-house. And from there, I was able to land a number of opportunities in increasingly fun and complex in-house roles, wide array of industries. And every single time, I'm glad to say I was able to provide value, but that value came from the experience I'd already gained, the skills I'd already developed, and more than anything, just the willingness to embrace change, embrace something new and exciting and different. And I think if you're not open to embracing change, then you may be stuck where you are.
I agree with that. Embracing change is critical in-house and legal. Was there a point where you realized technology would become the center of your legal career?
I knew it would always be a factor. I mean, this world we live in, it'd be like 100 years ago if you were not embracing the Industrial Revolution, right? Technology is a factor in everything, in every business, in every aspect of society. One difference is your willingness to dig in and figure out how it works. What makes it tick? I grew up in an environment where if something was broken, you fixed it, right? You dug in. And one great lesson I gained early on was that no technology is magical. So someone developed it, someone invented this, and it's okay to be impressed by that, but don't be scared by it. Dig in, figure out how it works. Understand the interplay of different systems and different parts of the world. I've carried that forward into my practice. I mean, it's technology centered, but as I think the world is caught up to where now everything in one way or another is technology centered. So it's a good place to be.
Absolutely. How do you balance innovation with the realities of operating in one of the most highly regulated industries?
Yeah, it's a fun place to be because you really are on the leading edge of figuring out, not just for your own company, but for an entire industry, how the interplay of patient care, healthcare, regulatory concerns, our collective obsession with protecting the privacy and integrity of patient data, and then innovation with cutting edge frontier technologies. It all comes together in one place. So rather than following, I'm glad to say that part of a team that's leading in many areas. And if you can do that with the cooperation of your customers, the cooperation of all the different regulatory bodies you interact with, then you can actually change things for the better. And that's wow, what an exciting place to be.
And your position spans legal, privacy, as you mentioned, cybersecurity, commercial strategy, and M&A, right?
Most of those areas. I'm fortunate to have some colleagues who specialize in privacy, other a whole team of colleagues who specialize in healthcare regulatory issues. We've actually got a great government affairs team out there advocating and leading the way on this interplay between healthcare technology and the regulatory environment. But I'm very fortunate to have a tremendous legal team who's there to support those functions, support the strategy team, and we're definitely heavily involved in M&A.
So, how has the role of general counsel evolved over the course of your career?
It's evolved quite a bit. I've had this discussion with any number of attorneys who are newer to their career or they're progressing and asking about what it's like to be a general counsel today. I've even had this discussion with my own team members who are watching firsthand what it's like for someone to have this role. The biggest change is that it's active rather than it's an active role of influencing a business rather than a passive role of taking taking in orders for what the business might need from a legal perspective. I think the best general counsel probably always had that approach, and I've watched it evolve to where more and more that's a necessity. It's just mandatory. So with that, you have to be curious about the business. You have to be involved in what's going on in the business. And I think one of the hardest things for many attorneys, especially those coming from private practice or maybe even government roles, is you have to learn to be a business partner and in some cases a business influencer rather than a lawyer. So keep that legal hat on and remember that's your skill set, that's your duty to the company. But boy, if you lead with that, you're probably not going to go very far. You have to lead with the business partnerial approach, lead with making it someone else's idea and then plotting that great idea that they came up with. And it gets us where we need to be.
What does it mean to be a strategic business partner today?
Yeah, I think it means just that, being involved in the strategy, being a co-owner of the approach and the outcomes, being an active participant in how we get there with the business, and it's something I think applies to every corporate function today. None of us can exist in a silo. None of us can operate just as a cost center. We all have to be active participants in the strategy of the company and how we execute on that. And so you'll find varying levels of acceptance, varying levels of sophistication among your business partners. And our job is just to get them there, to understand, hey, we can play a role, we're valuable, and we're better off working together than we are working in separate siloed activities. And that goes not just for legal, that goes for every single function.
Sure. And is that something you kind of had to learn on the job and kind of nuance over time?
Absolutely. No, you learn by watching the best at this art of business persuasion and strategic involvement. You learn by watching the not so great approaches that don't seem to work and don't go anywhere. And over time, you accumulate that experience, and you reach a point where you begin coaching and training and teaching the next generation those lessons learned, and hoping to advance the whole in-house profession. So the next group coming up who are going to take my place will be that much better off and that much better at this, so they can take the function even further.
That makes a lot of sense. I wanted to talk about cybersecurity and privacy a bit more. They continue to be major priorities in healthcare. How do you approach those challenges while still enabling innovation? I know it's not completely under your purview, but
Yeah.
you're overseeing it, right?
Well, yeah, we all have an active role in it. And again, if you have a chief information security officer, you may have a chief privacy officer, you'll have your chief legal officer. We're all playing a role, but you realize none of these functions can accomplish anything in isolation. And even with our combined efforts, we cannot accomplish anything or protect the business and protect our outside stakeholders if we're not actively involved in working with the operations folks, working with the folks with customer relationships. At the end of the day, it comes down to your greatest vulnerability in any business. This is not just healthcare, are the people, right? Ask any cybersecurity expert and they'll tell you exactly that. You can build your moat, have your systems, have incident detection and management, but at the end of the day, your people are the biggest vulnerability. And today, the most active and most successful bad actors are exploiting that. And they're using increasingly sophisticated AI-based tools to gain trust and engage in that social engineering that can exploit the vulnerability sitting behind a computer. So we work together to try to educate our employees, to try to build defenses that can isolate any given employee's account, can reduce the extent that a compromise could harm a business, and constantly and understand that no matter how good we get at it and how some rating or some score may show that, oh yeah, you've really improved this and you're ahead of the industry in this, you're never done. Every day is an arms race on that cybersecurity front.
What advice would you give legal leaders who are navigating rapidly changing technology and regulatory environments?
Number one piece of advice is find and establish a network of the best experts you can find. This is rapidly evolving more than anybody can keep up with. I don't care how much you stay up at night researching and reading and staying current. We all try to do that. Find those experts and consult them and work with them before you need them. Right. So I have a terrific network. I've been very fortunate to work with great folks in incident management, in cybersecurity, advances in technology. I'm extremely fortunate to work at a company that has on staff some of the most advanced highly educated and highly experienced AI engineers, data scientists, and we can learn from a lot from them. They're understanding the frontier technologies and how we are trying to use them for good, while other folks out there are trying to use them for nefarious purposes. And with that kind of expertise, we stand a chance at keeping the company current and ahead of that curve. But boy, if you wait until you need them, that's my number one piece of advice for any general counsel or anybody in a corporate leadership role. Don't wait until the incident has begun to form that network. Get them in your contacts. Get them on calls. Start having active sessions of exploring what's going on with your company in peacetime, because when the war starts, it's too late.
That's really great advice. It sounds like you've built that network from outside of the company and
For sure. Yeah,
within.
it
Yeah,
involves some inside folks, but rarely do you have any kind of expertise like that in a company. It's definitely finding the right partners. Sometimes that comes through attending the right conferences. You'll read a good article. You reach out to the person who wrote that. We have a network of vendors where we've already established. Hey, we've got the engagement, we've got the NDAs, we've got the right understanding of our systems. Sometimes you hire them and vet them on smaller matters, and then they kind of work their way up the list, and you realize, okay, I've got really good quality team. And if that capital I incident begins, I know exactly who to plug into what part of that.
Yeah, really smart. So you've experienced both public company life and now private equity ownership. How do those environments differ from the perspective of a general counsel, if at all?
Yeah, no, there's quite a bit of difference, and it may not be what some folks think. I know, again, within my professional life, and a lot of my friends have worked in a variety of these environments, and I think you'll hear some of the same thing. In a public company, there is a bit of a forcing function that your legal department in particular can use and should use to get a seat right at the center of almost everything that happens. So when it comes to your customers and how customer contracts come together, when it comes to communications and marketing, and definitely when it comes to anything resembling, say, a cybersecurity incident or financial performance or anything, the public company reporting environment is such that the legals team has to be right there, aware of brewing developments, not after the fact, but early in every part of the business, early in every part of the process. So we can help guide and shape what disclosures are going to look like, what the public company strategy needs to be when it comes to thinking about normal reporting cycles, extraordinary reporting. You see 8Ks come out from companies all the time. There's a lot of thought, a lot of deliberation that goes into every one of those filings. And it's not just the filing itself, it's all of the downstream implications. Everything you say and do as a public company is subject to scrutiny first by your shareholders, by the market reactions, tell a story, intended or not, by your regulators, starting with the SEC and your exchanges, and then you go downstream into various states and whatnot. Those implications can show up quietly, subtly, or very dramatically. And then ultimately, there is a shareholders plaintiff bar out there that is very actively watching a public company. Every instance, but again, here's the good part. If you do this correctly, if you establish the right level of influence, you demonstrate the value of the legal team, you do get involved, and then you do have that ability to shape and influence what the course of a public company looks like. Contrast that with a privately held company. In our case, we're now owned by two great private equity firms. You take away that public company forcing function, and it puts the legal department then in a position of having to find its points of influence and demonstrate its value in other ways to stay involved and keep that awareness of what's going on with the business. But it's not the same. And I think even though public company life as an in-house team is challenging, and there's a lot of burden that goes with it and a lot of responsibility that goes with it, in some ways it's easier because you do have that leverage, that point of influence to be involved in almost everything. So for my colleagues out there who are at privately held companies or approaching a transaction where you become privately held, just know that it's different, but it's still achievable. It's still doable.
Great insight. You may have touched on this, but what changes when legal becomes part of a high growth value creation strategy?
What changes? I mean, if legal is on the outside looking in, or I know any number of smaller companies rely on outside counsel or may rely on their owners leveraging some legal support. And that may be a bit more reactive, right? The best outside counsel in the world, the most caring outside counsel partner is still on the outside looking in, and to a certain extent is still just passing through. When you have an in-house team and you can build an in-house legal function that's part of that high growth strategy, that's part of rapid change, then you can get the full advantage of that legal team's advice and counsel all the way through the process from the beginning. I mean, I've been very fortunate, and I've had several members of my legal team at the outset of my current company's massive transformation, right? We're launching AI-based revenue cycle tools that have never been seen in this market before. And because of the value that this team had demonstrated, because of the skills and influence that our team members were able to exert over the business, we were involved from day one and have had a role in that at each stage, and that continues. Something that any legal department would be very very enthusiastic about, very proud of, and it's such an opportunity to help that part of the business. So again, so anyone who's at a smaller company, or I know there are a lot of general counsel who are one person shops. Maybe the first time a company's ever had an in-house lawyer, they probably don't know how to use in-house counsel. They may not have that experience yet, and there is a tremendous opportunity there. And that's where early in my career, I learned to leverage networks like the Association of Corporate Counsel, for instance, or maybe even local groups where you get that support from other in-house counsel, their lessons learned, things that have worked, things that haven't worked. I know at my current company, one of our private equity owners is CD&R, and they have an interesting approach where they take the entire portfolio of companies they own and they create centers of excellence. They set up opportunities, for instance, so all of the chief legal officers compare notes on different topics, share best practices, have that ability to lean on each other. So I may be at a larger company with a relatively large legal department, and I can speak with a solo general counsel who would love to hear how we approached different topics. By the same token, I can hear from other general counsel. Hey, they've just talked to a colleague the other day. She's cycled through a half dozen of the AI tools out there in the market, and saved us all that brain damage and pain of having to go through and try them ourselves by hearing her experience, hearing what her team liked and didn't like. It's like having your own focus group there within your network.
I love that infrastructure is created. I have heard about that through other PE companies that they're doing that, and it seems so valuable.
Such a
I
great approach.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've been involved in acquisitions and strategic growth initiatives. What roles should legal play in helping companies scale successfully?
Yeah, it kind of gets back to my point about doing everything possible to be involved early in the process. And I think if you have the right in-house team and they have the right relationship with the business, and I think almost any in-house team is going to have a better understanding of how the business works, what the moving parts are, and that's a huge advantage when you then go to acquire another business and you're doing diligence. You're helping the corporate development team analyze the pipeline to understand, is this a business we should be going after or not? We can bring specific skill sets, intellectual property rights, for instance, or some of the regulatory pitfalls. Maybe diligence out some items that the target company has in their closet that may not have come out just in business to business discussions. So I think the legal team can play a huge role in establishing that strategy, assessing targets, and then obviously then the default position that most folks take is, then legal gets involved in actually contracting the purchase. But I think if you wait until you're structuring a letter of intent, or even after, to bring legal in, or in some cases, that's when a smaller company might start hiring outside counsel. Well, you've missed such an opportunity to bring this perspective and to bring that partnership into the early stages, and you're gonna have a much better chance of having successful, valuable transactions.
I feel like some people think legal teams there to manage the risk, right? But I think what you just got into is how do legal teams create value beyond managing the risk?
I think the ultimate value of a legal team is to keep this position where we're intimately involved in the business, but we still have a perspective that the operators and the other functions may not have, and rightly so. It's not their job. where we can see the outer limits of risk, right? We can help build the warning signs and the guardrails that keep the business within manageable risk. If you're in business, you're taking risks. If you're not taking risks, you're probably not going to be in business very long. So we're all here to take known risks. We're all here to manage the risk taking in a way to maximize our chance of being successful. So if the legal team can help do that, then you're establishing value, then you're establishing partnership. Now, if you're risk adverse, or if you're trying to prevent risk, again, if that's a legal function that's probably not going to be very successful at its job, and it's probably not going to help drive a successful risk-taking business. So I know this profession tends to attract people who are fairly risk adverse, and when we do those fun personality assessments that HR brings around every now and then, you find a lot of clustering in that more cautious, risk adverse personality type. But I think in the in-house role, this is an opportunity, and frankly, it's a need to embrace the riskier prospects, embrace change, embrace a solid philosophy of controlling what we can control, and just being aware and eyes open to what we can't control. And let's go build the most successful business we can.
That's great. Along those lines of building, I wanted to talk a little bit about building great legal teams. You've built and now lead a pretty substantial, legal team. What qualities do you look for when you're adding to your team?
Well, so it comes down to kind of my personal career path, and what gets me out of bed in the morning is I love the chance to solve big problems, like the big, ugly, scary problems that confront a business. That's my best day ever. That's great. Bring it on. My second favorite thing is to build a great team. And if you build a great team, then together we're going to solve even bigger, uglier problems for the business, right? And it's just this virtuous cycle. So that's the number one thing I look for. I look for people who, it's great to have people who wake up and say, man, I can't wait to grind through more contracts. Okay. Or dig through this 500-page regulatory draft. Terrific. The world needs that. But what I really need in my in-house team are people who see that as a means to an end, and the end is to solve big problems for our client, our business. How do we help grow this business? How do we help drive it? And it takes a certain degree of energy about your business, the people you serve, the end markets you serve. In my current company, you can see a direct line to making healthcare better for patients out there. And sometimes those patients are our own family members or us, right? So if you can support that and get and see line of sight, oh, what I do as an in-house lawyer actually supports this business and supports those people out there who are just trying to get through their lives. That's the motivation. That's what I'm looking for. So if you're in-house and you're not that connected or not that excited about your business, I would question maybe private practice or something like that is a better fit, because we really do have such an opportunity, right? This is such a privileged position to be intimately involved and inside this business, to be there at the beginning of every challenge, to work through it and execute on our solutions, and then be here with the business, with the consequences and the outcomes. I mean, that's a great place to be. So if I'm in the stage where I have the opportunity to work through candidates or talk about what we're looking for in our next member of the team who's going to join us, I really emphasize those qualities, and they're a little difficult to suss out in this interviewing process we have, but we do our best, and I'm happy to say I think we've been very, very successful.
I'm glad you have. And do you think that you can develop a culture where legal is viewed as a trusted business partner? Is that something can be developed?
Well, I think it has to be developed. It's a relationship, and like any relationship we experience in our professional or personal lives, it's not a one and done thing, and you can't just say it and it's true. You have to nurture it and develop it every single day. And especially when you have a large team and you have a large number of clients, you have all those variables and all those personalities and all those day-to-day interactions going on. And so on any given day, that relationship may deepen and strengthen by a few degrees. And on any given day, you may have a few setbacks that shake it up a bit. Great, you work through it. You celebrate the forward progress, but you can't rely on it. And you can't rest on it. You have to wake up the next day and say, we're gonna take it forward. If you have a setback, you can't go into a death spiral about it. You have to say, all right, that was a setback. What did we learn from it? And how do we move past it? And let's go fix it. Let's go repair. Somebody may have just burned a bridge. Well, great. You can't give up on it. You have to go, let's go repair that bridge. Let's go sort it out.
What skills should the next generation of in-house lawyers be developing today?
Boy, I think today, some of the skills that I would have said were valuable years ago and valuable from day one of my career, I think they are critical and non-negotiable today. So we're in a world where some would have you think that AI could replace any number of lawyers. You know what? To a certain extent, I would rephrase that, and I would say AI is already at a point where it can replace any number of tasks that humans have been doing, and actually be pretty good at it on every single day. I have Copilot and I have Claude Cowork running and pulling information and summarizing and doing meeting prep has never been better. But rather than have a human perform some of these tasks, I think there's higher value work that they could and should be doing. So if you're an in-house attorney, if you're a paralegal, frankly, if you're anybody in any corporate function and you're solely performing tasks that can be replaced by this generation of AI tools and the up and coming improvements, you're probably not performing your highest and best work. You're not, because what we all need to be here to perform, and you asked about the skill sets, be that source of judgment, be that advisor who can process and look around the corners and think through a situation more dynamically than just a collection of tasks, right? Be a human first, which means communication, relationship, persuasion, not a mechanical input-output legal machine, right? So I think the skill sets that have always been valuable, and I think, Mark, some of the in-house attorneys and frankly the business professionals I admire most are the skills that every single lawyer, every single in-house professional is going to have to bring in spades. And I do believe they can be developed. They can be taught. They can be coached. It just takes the right willingness and the right mindset to embrace that.
I agree 100%. I was just had a speaking engagement yesterday, and some of this AI and using AI came up. And one of the things I shared is it can't take the place of judgment. So yeah,
And that's
I agree with you.
I truly believe. I mean, as great as these large language models are, they're effectively guessing engines, right? They're trying to predict what's the next word, what's the next association. As good as they get, high level human judgment is our superpower. So let's arm ourselves with the best that these AI tools can bring us. And they're bringing us some pretty amazing capabilities already, and will keep increasing. But our task to remain valuable and to be successful going forward is to really hone and develop judgment, just like you said, Shawna, and our ability to communicate and deliver that judgment, and our ability to communicate in a way that's persuasive and effective to the business professionals around us. I mean, that's the recipe for success.
Yeah. I agree. Thanks for sharing that with us. As we wrap up today, I want to give you one final question as I give all my guests. If you could give one piece of advice to attorneys and at the start of your career or looking back at your career, what advice would you give yourself looking back?
Yeah, it's a great question. The advice I would definitely give myself, and that I would share to anybody looking at an in-house career, frankly, looking at any kind of business career, boy, I would say stay curious, stay actively curious. It's easy to let the day-to-day and the immediacy of what we're doing uh, consume and occupy all of our time. I fall victim to that. We all do. But man, if you stay actively curious, think about the why. Why are we doing this? And how could we do it better? And what else is going on out there? Look at any in-house job. You may have a task. You may be, let's say you're a contracts lawyer and you're working on this one specific kind of contract for one widget your company makes. Okay, that's keeps you busy. It's active. But man, if you can be actively curious about what else is going on, that's when you make yourself available for the next opportunity. That's when you make yourself more valuable to that business. And you do that over the course of a career, and you find that curiosity it's another one of those superpowers that's going to keep you ahead of the curve and probably keep you more fulfilled and more engaged in what you're doing. And at the end of the day, whatever your definition of success is, probably going to make you a lot more successful.
I love that. That's really great advice. I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Me
Thank you
too.
so much for being my guest.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawna. I appreciate the opportunity. And I love that you're doing this. It's great for everybody.
Thank you. Thanks. I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thanks.